Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the cold metal window of the space station. Her breath made little clouds on the glass as she stared at the stars. 3 years she had been waiting for this moment. 3 years of studying alien biology from books and computer screens. Today, everything would change. The research station floated quietly around a distant planet. Earth felt like a lifetime away. Elena had volunteered for this mission because she believed in something most people thought was impossible. She believed humans and aliens could be friends. "Elena, they're here," called her teammate from across the room. His voice was shaking with excitement. She turned around and saw it on the big screen. A ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of dark crystal. Purple lights danced across its surface like lightning frozen in time. The ship was massive, easily 10 times bigger than their little research station. Elena's heart raced. This was it. First contact with an alien species. The ship moved closer without making a sound. No engines roaring, no rockets firing. It just glided through space like a ghost. Elena wondered how it worked. What kind of technology could move something so big so smoothly? "Are you ready for this?" asked Dr. Chen, the mission leader. He was trying to sound calm, but Elena could see his hands trembling as he adjusted his uniform. "Ready as I'll ever be," Elena replied, smoothing down her own clothes. She had practiced this moment hundreds of times in training simulations, but nothing could prepare her for the real thing. The alien ship stopped just a few hundred feet away. For several minutes, nothing happened. Both ships floated in silence, like two animals meeting for the first time, not sure if they should run or stay. Then the aliens sent a message, not in words, but in mathematical equations that appeared on their computer screens. Elena watched as their translator program worked to decode the symbols. The message was simple: "We wish to meet." Dr. Chen looked at Elena and nodded. She was the xenobiologist, the expert in alien life. If anyone was going to make first contact go smoothly, it would be her. The airlock doors opened with a soft hiss. Elena's heart pounded as she watched 3 figures float through the connecting tunnel between the ships. They were wearing some kind of energy suits that shimmered like water. When they entered the station's main meeting room, Elena forgot how to breathe. The leader was clearly female, though unlike any woman Elena had ever seen. She stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms that moved like graceful dance. Her skin looked like it was made from liquid silver mixed with crushed jewels. It kept changing, colors shifting between silver and deep purple like an evening sky. Her eyes were the most beautiful and terrifying things Elena had ever seen. They glowed with soft blue light and seemed to look right through her, as if reading her soul. "I am Queen Lyrale of the Zephyrian Empire," the being spoke without moving her lips. Her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, echoing inside Elena's head. Elena tried to remember her training. Stay calm, be respectful, follow the cultural guidelines they had studied. But looking at this magnificent creature, all her preparations seemed to melt away. "Welcome to our station, Your Majesty," Dr. Chen said, bowing slightly. "We are honored by your presence." Queen Lyrale's skin flickered with different colors as she studied the humans. Elena wondered what the colors meant. Was she angry, curious, afraid? "We have come because our long-range scouts detected your species expanding into the stars," the Queen continued. "We wish to determine if you are friends or enemies." Elena stepped forward. This was her moment. Everything she had studied and dreamed about led to this conversation. "We come in peace," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "We're scientists and explorers. We want to learn about other civilizations and share knowledge." The Queen's glowing eyes focused on Elena. For a moment, Elena felt dizzy, like someone was gently touching her thoughts. "You speak of peace, human, but your species has a history of violence against your own kind. Why should we trust you with ours?" Elena felt her cheeks burn. The Queen was right. Humans had fought wars for thousands of years. Even now, there were conflicts on Earth. How could she convince this advanced being that humanity had changed? "You're right," Elena admitted. "We haven't always been peaceful, but that's exactly why we're here. We want to be better. We want to learn from species like yours who have achieved harmony." Something shifted in the queen's expression. The purple in her skin became softer, less harsh. An honest answer, she said. "Perhaps there is hope for your species after all." Dr. Chen cleared his throat. "Your Majesty, we have prepared a small ceremony to mark this historic meeting. If you would allow us." Elena watched as Dr. Chen gestured toward the queen. In human culture, they had planned to shake hands as a symbol of friendship. It seemed like such a simple, innocent gesture. But as Elena reached out her hand toward the queen, everything went wrong. The moment Elena's fingers touched the queen's hand, the alien leader jerked back like she had been struck by lightning. Her skin flashed bright red, then white, then colors Elena had never seen before. "You dare touch me, human!" The queen's voice exploded through the room like thunder. The walls seemed to shake with her fury. Elena stumbled backward, terrified and confused. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's how we greet each other." But the queen wasn't listening. She was staring at her hand where Elena had touched it, her eyes wide with something that looked like shock and fear. The two alien guards behind her immediately raised weapons that looked like they were made of pure light. Elena was sure she was about to die. Then something strange happened. Instead of the burning pain Elena expected from alien weapons, she felt a warm, tingling sensation spreading from her fingertips up her arm. It was like tiny sparks of electricity, but pleasant instead of painful. At the same time, she could swear she felt something else, emotions that weren't her own. Surprise, confusion, and underneath it all, something she couldn't quite identify. The queen was staring at Elena with an expression of complete bewilderment. Her skin had stopped flashing angry colors and was now pulsing with soft gold light. Impossible. The queen whispered, "How are you still alive?" Elena looked down at her hand. It looked completely normal, but she could still feel that strange tingling sensation. "What just happened?" Elena asked. The queen didn't answer immediately. She was studying Elena like she was some kind of fascinating puzzle. "In our culture," the queen finally said, her voice much quieter now, "physical contact between strangers is forbidden. It can create mental bonds or," she paused, seeming to search for the right words, "or kill the weaker mind." Elena's blood ran cold. She had nearly died from a handshake. "But you survived," the queen continued, wonder creeping into her voice. "Not only survived, but I can sense your intentions, your genuine desire for peace." Dr. Chen stepped forward carefully. "Your Majesty, we had no idea. Our species uses physical contact as a greeting. We meant no disrespect." The queen's guards were still pointing their weapons at the humans, waiting for orders. Elena could see the tension in their postures, ready to eliminate the threat to their leader. Queen Lyrale raised one of her four hands, and the guards lowered their weapons slightly. "The damage is done," she said, but her tone was more thoughtful than angry now. "A connection has been formed between us, human. This has never happened with an alien species before." Elena could still feel that strange sensation, like there was an invisible thread connecting her to the magnificent alien queen. "What does that mean?" Elena asked. "It means," the queen said slowly, "that until I understand what has happened here, you are coming with me. You will be my cultural prisoner, to prevent war between our peoples." Elena's heart sank. She had wanted to make history with first contact. Instead, she was about to become the first human prisoner of an alien civilization. But as she looked into Queen Lyrale's glowing eyes, she didn't see cruelty or hatred. She saw curiosity and something else that made her feel less afraid. Maybe, just maybe, this mistake could become something more than either of them expected. Elena had seen pictures of luxury hotels on Earth, but nothing compared to her prison cell on the alien ship. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with soft light. The bed looked like it was carved from a single piece of smooth stone, but when she touched it, it felt softer than any mattress she had ever known. Through the large window, she could see stars moving past at impossible speeds. They were traveling faster than light, something humans had only dreamed about. Even as a prisoner, she couldn't help but feel amazed by the technology around her. It had been 3 days since she was taken from the space station. 3 days of sitting alone, wondering what would happen to her. The only contact she had was when silent alien servants brought her food that tasted like nothing she had ever eaten before. The strange tingling sensation in her hand had never gone away. Sometimes she would close her eyes and swear she could feel emotions that weren't her own. Sadness, worry, and sometimes curiosity. On the 4th day, the door to her room opened with a sound like wind chimes. Queen Lyrale entered, but she looked different somehow. Her skin was darker purple than before, and the light in her eyes seemed dimmer. "Human," she said, though her voice didn't sound as commanding as it had during their first meeting. "We need to talk." Elena stood up from the crystal chair where she had been reading from a device the Queen's servants had given her. It translated Zephyrian history into English, and she had been learning fascinating things about their civilization. "My name is Elena," she said quietly. "Not just human." The Queen paused, as if considering this. "Elena," she repeated, and somehow the way she said it made Elena's heart skip a beat. "That is the pleasant sound." They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. Elena noticed that the Queen seemed tired. There were no dark circles under her eyes like humans got, but something about her posture suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. "Are you all right?" Elena asked before she could stop herself. The Queen's skin flickered with surprise. "You ask about my well-being. You are my prisoner." "That doesn't mean I want you to suffer," Elena replied honestly. Queen Lyrale studied her for a long moment. Then, to Elena's surprise, she sat down on the edge of the crystal bed. It was the first time Elena had seen her do anything that seemed casual or informal. "The connection between us," the Queen began, "it grows stronger each day. This should not be possible." Elena sat down too, careful to keep some distance between them. "What kind of connection?" "Among my people, physical touch can create mental bonds. Usually, these bonds are formed intentionally between family members or life partners. They allow us to share thoughts and emotions across great distances." The Queen's skin shifted to a softer shade of purple. "But the bond that formed between us, it happened instantly, and with a member of another species. My advisors say it's impossible." Elena felt that tingling sensation again, stronger now. "I can feel it too. Sometimes I get emotions that don't seem like mine." "Yes," the Queen said softly. "I feel your curiosity, your wonder at our technology, and also your loneliness." Elena looked down at her hands. "I've been alone most of my life. My parents died when I was young in one of Earth's climate disasters. I threw myself into studying science because I thought if we could understand other forms of life, maybe we could learn to take better care of our own planet." She looked up to find the Queen watching her intently. "Your parents," the Queen said. "How did they die?" "Flooding. The ocean levels rose faster than anyone predicted. Millions of people lost their homes, their families." Elena's voice grew quiet. "I was one of the lucky ones. I survived." The Queen's skin grew even softer in color. "My parents died when I was young as well." Elena looked up in surprise. "Really? A plague swept through our world when I was barely old enough to speak. It killed millions of my people, including the previous queen and king." Queen Lyrale's voice carried ancient sadness. "I became ruler when I was still a child. I've been leading my people for over 200 of your Earth years." 200 years? Elena couldn't hide her amazement. "How long do your people live?" "Much longer than humans, it seems. But sometimes I feel as though I've carried the weight of my world for an eternity." Elena found herself moving closer to the Queen without thinking about it. "That sounds incredibly lonely." "It is." The admission seemed to surprise the Queen herself. A ruler cannot show weakness, cannot form close bonds with others, as it might compromise judgment. "I have been alone by choice and by necessity." Elena felt a wave of sadness wash over her, and she realized it wasn't her own emotion. It was coming from Queen Lyrale through their strange connection. "Is that why your people don't like to touch?" Elena asked gently. "Physical contact creates vulnerability. When minds connect, both parties can be hurt if the bond is broken. It's safer to maintain distance." The Queen looked at her hands. "But when you touch me, I felt something I had never experienced before. What was that? Acceptance. You looked at me and saw someone worth knowing. Not just a title or a position of power. Queen Liralay's eyes met Elena's. When was the last time someone touched you with such innocent intention? Elena thought about it. I honestly can't remember. Most people keep their distance from scientists who spend their time thinking about aliens. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Elena could feel the Queen's presence in her mind like a warm glow, and somehow it made her feel less alone than she had in years. Your Majesty, Elena began. Lirale, the Queen interrupted. When we are alone. You may call me Lirale. Elena smiled. Lirale, why did you really bring me here? I don't think it's just to prevent a war. The Queen was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, because for the first time into centuries, I don't feel alone. Elena felt her heart swell with an emotion that might have been her own, or might have been the Queen's. She couldn't tell the difference anymore. But my advisors grow concerned, Lirale continued, her skin darkening again. They believe the bond is making me weak. They want me to end it. End it how? Elena asked. Though she was afraid she knew the answer. By ending you. Elena felt cold fear run through her veins. But underneath it, she sensed something else from Lirale. Determination. Protection. But you won't let them, Elena said. It wasn't a question. No, Lirale said firmly. I will not. Though I'm not sure how long I can protect you. We reach our home world in 2 days. There, the High Council will demand answers I'm not sure I can give. Elena looked out at the stars rushing past. 2 days to figure out how to survive meeting an alien government. That probably wanted her dead. Then we better use that time wisely. She said. Lirale's skin brightened slightly, and Elena felt a flutter of something that might have been hope. The city below took Elena's breath away as their ship descended through purple clouds. She pressed her face against the window and stared at something that looked like it had been built by angels. Towers of pure crystal stretched up into the sky, so tall she couldn't see their tops. They twisted and curved like frozen music, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of solid light. The entire city glowed with soft colors that shifted and changed like the northern lights. Back on Earth, welcome to Zephyros Prime, Lirale said softly from beside her. Elena had spent the last 2 days learning more about Lirale's world and people. The Queen had shared stories of her childhood, the weight of sudden responsibility, and the loneliness of command. In return, Elena had told her about Earth's beauty and its problems, about human dreams and human mistakes. Their mental bond had grown stronger with each conversation. Sometimes Elena could feel Lirale's thoughts before she spoke them. Other times, she would catch herself knowing things about Zephyrian culture that she had never been taught. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Elena whispered, and potentially the last. Lirale replied, though Elena sensed she was trying to stay hopeful. The ship landed in what looked like a garden made of living crystal. Strange plants with metallic leaves swayed in an alien breeze, and the ground beneath their feet felt warm and smooth like polished stone. Elena had been given clothes that resembled Zephyrian fashion, flowing robes that changed color with her movements. She felt like she was wearing liquid starlight, but the beauty couldn't hide her fear. Remember, Lirale said as they walked toward the enormous building that served as the government center. Speak only when spoken to. Answer honestly, but keep your responses brief. The council respects directness, but not lengthy explanations. Elena nodded, trying to memorize everything Lirale had taught her about Zephyrian politics and customs. The council consisted of 12 ancient beings, each representing different aspects of their civilization. They were powerful, wise, and according to Lirale, not particularly fond of change. The council chamber was even more magnificent than the city outside. The walls were made of the same crystal as everything else, but they showed moving images of Zephyrian history. Elena saw wars fought among the stars, planets being born and dying, and the slow evolution of an entire civilization. 12 figures sat in a circle on thrones that seemed to float in midair. Each one was different. Some tall and thin, others broader. their skin showing colors Elena had never seen before. But all of them had the same glowing eyes, and all of them were staring at her with expressions she couldn't read. Queen Lyrale, spoke one of the council members, his voice echoing through the chamber. You have brought this alien before us to answer for her violation of our most sacred laws. Elena felt Lyrale tense beside her. Through their bond, she could sense the queen's determination mixed with genuine fear for Elena's safety. Honored Council, Lyrale began. This human acted without knowledge of our customs. Her species uses physical contact as a greeting. There was no intent to violate or harm. Intent matters little when dealing with the safety of our queen. Another council member responded coldly. The alien touched you without permission. By our law, the punishment is death. Elena's heart hammered in her chest, but she forced herself to stand straight and look directly at the council. If she was going to die, she would do it with dignity. However, the first council member continued. We understand that an unusual bond is formed. We wish to hear from the alien herself before we pass judgment. Elena stepped forward. Remembering Lyrale's advice about being direct, Honored Council, she began, her voice stronger than she felt. I know that I broke your law, and I know the penalty, but I want you to understand that my people sent me here because we believe different species can learn from each other and live in peace. Peace, scoffed one of the older council members. Your species is known for violence against your own kind. What peace can you offer us? Elena felt anger flash through her, but she pushed it down. Getting emotional wouldn't help. You're right. Humans have fought wars, hurt each other, damaged our own planet. But that's exactly why we need to learn from civilizations like yours. You've achieved something we're still working toward, harmony. Advanced technology used for creation instead of destruction. She paused, looking at each council member in turn. The bond that formed between Queen Lyrale and me, it wasn't planned or intended, but through it, I've experienced her thoughts, her wisdom, her genuine care for her people. And she's experienced my hope that different species can understand each other instead of fear. In each other, the bond, said another council member, is dangerous. It compromises the queen's ability to rule objectively. Elena felt Lyrale's flash of anger through their connection. But the queen remained silent. With respect, Elena said carefully, I think the bond shows that understanding is possible. Queen Lyrale hasn't become weaker because of our connection. She's still the same wise, strong leader she always was. But now she has experienced how another species thinks and feels. Isn't that knowledge valuable? The council members looked at each other, communicating in ways Elena couldn't understand. She could sense Lyrale's tension growing. Suddenly, alarms began ringing throughout the chamber. The crystal walls flashed red, and Elena could hear shouting from outside the building. What is happening? Queen Lyrale demanded. Standing quickly, a young Zephyrian rushed into the chamber, his skin flickering with colors that Elena now recognized as panic and fear. Your Majesty. Honored Council, he gasped. The outer colonies are reporting cases of the Red Death. Elena felt ice run through her veins as she sensed Lyrale's horror through their bond. She didn't know what the Red Death was, but through their connection, she caught flashes of Lyrale's memories, images of terrible sickness, people dying in pain, and most heartbreaking of all, young Lyrale crying over her parents' bodies. Impossible. One of the council members said, his skin turning pale. The Red Death was eliminated decades ago. The reports are confirmed. The messenger continued. 3 colonies have gone completely silent. Medical teams sent to investigate have also stopped responding. Elena watched as the council erupted into heated discussion. Their formal composure cracked as fear took over. Through her bond with Lyrale, she could understand some of what they were saying. The Red Death was the plague that had killed millions of Zephyrians, including Lyrale's parents. It attacked the nervous system, causing victims to experience uncontrollable pain before death. Worse, it spread through their telepathic connections, making traditional healers afraid to help for fear of being infected themselves. Your Majesty, Elena said quietly, let me help. Lyrale looked at her in surprise. What? I'm a xenobiologist. I study alien diseases and biological systems. Maybe I can find something your doctors missed. You are not qualified to treat Zephyrian illnesses, one of the council members said dismissively. But I might see things differently because I'm not Zephyrian, Eleanor replied. Sometimes an outside perspective can spot what people too close to a problem can't see. She turned to address the full council. You were about to sentence me to death for accidentally creating a bond with your queen. But that same bond allows us to share knowledge in ways that have never been possible before. Through our connection, I can understand Zephyrian biology in ways no human ever has. And Queen Lyrale can understand human scientific methods. That might offer new approaches to old problems. The council fell silent, considering her words. If I can help stop this plague, Elena continued, will you consider that the bond between your queen and me might be a gift instead of a curse? Elena felt Lyrale's surge of hope and pride. Through their connection, and if you cannot help, asked the lead council member, Elena took a deep breath. Then you can carry out my sentence. But please, let me try. Let us try together. The council members looked at each other again. Finally, the lead member spoke. Very well. You have until the plague reaches the capital city. If you succeed, we will reconsider your fate. If you fail, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Elena felt Lyrale's hand brush against hers, and through their bond, she felt the queen's determination and gratitude. They had a chance. It might be their only chance, but it was better than no chance at all. Elena had never worked so hard in her entire life. The Zephyrian medical facility was like stepping into the future. Walls that could display any information she needed, tools that responded to her thoughts, and microscopes that could see things smaller than atoms. But despite all this amazing technology, the plague was winning. Show me the latest reports, Elena said to the glowing wall display. Images appeared immediately, showing the spread of the Red Death across 3 more colonies. The red dots on the map looked like drops of blood spreading across the galaxy. Queen Lyrale sat beside her, her skin pale with exhaustion. They had been working for days straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. Through their mental bond, Elena could feel Lyrale's fear and determination mixing with her own. The pattern doesn't make sense, Elena muttered, staring at the data. Look at this. The plague kills quickly, but it doesn't spread like a normal disease. It jumps from person to person randomly, sometimes skipping entire families. Our healers say it spreads through telepathic contact, Lyrale replied, rubbing her temples. When they try to help victims, they become infected themselves. Elena paused, a strange thought beginning to form in her mind. Lyrale, what if it's not a disease at all? The queen looked at her in confusion. What do you mean? Elena stood up and began pacing, her mind racing. Through their bond, Lyrale could feel Elena's excitement building every time I studied the samples. I can't find any virus or bacteria, no physical cause for the illness. But what if that's because there isn't one? Elena, people are dying. There must be something causing it. Yes, but what if it's not biological? What if it's telepathic? Elena turned to face Lyrale, her eyes bright with discovery. Your people are all connected through your mental abilities, right? Like a giant invisible network. Lyrale nodded slowly. What if the Red Death isn't a disease that spreads through telepathy? What if it is telepathy? What if it's some kind of harmful mental energy that feeds on your telepathic connections? Eleanor rushed to the wall display and began pulling up information about Zephyrian brain patterns. Look at this, she said, pointing to the swirling patterns of mental energy that showed how Zephyrians thought. Every time someone gets infected, there's a spike in telepathic activity right before they get sick. It's like something is attacking their minds, not their bodies. Lyrale stood up, her skin beginning to glow brighter as hope returned. If you're right, then traditional medicine won't work because doctors are trying to treat the wrong thing. Exactly. Elena felt a rush of excitement. But if it's feeding on telepathic energy, then we need to find a way to disrupt it. Elena and Lyrale looked at each other, and suddenly Elena understood why their bond felt so different from normal Zephyrian connections. I'm not telepathic, Elena whispered. And I'm connected to you, Lyrale added, understanding dawning in her glowing eyes. Which means through our bond, you have access to a non-telepathic mind. A blank spot in the network that the plague can't read or infect it. Elena felt her heart racing as the solution became clear. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but it was their only chance. We need to create a bigger blank spot, Elena said. If I can somehow merge my non-telepathic mind with yours more completely, we might be able to create a disruption in the telepathic network, like breaking a chain that connects everyone. Liralay's skin went pale. Elena, merging minds completely. It's never been done with an alien species. We don't know what would happen. We know what happens if we don't try, Elena replied grimly. The plague spreads to the capital, then to other worlds. How many people die while we look for a safer solution through their bond? Elena felt Liralay's internal struggle. The queen was terrified, not for herself, but for Elena. A complete mental merger could kill Elena instantly, or worse, trap both their minds in some kind of shared consciousness they could never escape from. There has to be another way, Liralay said. Elena took Liralay's hands in hers, not caring about the cultural taboos anymore. The moment their skin touched, their bond flared brighter, and Elena could feel all of Liralay's emotions as if they were her own. Look into my mind, Elena said softly. See what I see. Through their connection, Elena showed Liralay her memories of Earth, the floods that killed her parents, the wars that destroyed cities, the slow death of entire species because people couldn't work together to solve problems. I've spent my whole life watching my species make the same mistakes over and over again, Elena said. Fear, hatred, the inability to trust someone different from ourselves. But here, with you, I've seen what's possible when different beings truly understand each other. Elena felt tears on her cheeks, though she wasn't sure if they were hers or Liralay's. If we don't try this, your people die, and the chance for our species to learn from each other dies with them. I won't let that happen. Liralay closed her glowing eyes, and Elena felt the queen's love and gratitude flowing through their bond. It was overwhelming and beautiful and terrifying all at once. If we do this, Liralay said quietly, we might lose ourselves. We might become something that is neither human nor Zephyrian, or we might become something new. Elena replied, something better. Elena felt Liralay's decision the moment the queen made it. Determination replaced fear, and love replaced doubt. The medical facility has equipment that can amplify telepathic connections, Liralay said. We can use it to force a deeper merger between our minds. They worked together to set up the equipment, their hands moving in perfect synchronization as their bond guided them. Elena felt like she was watching herself from outside her body, guided by knowledge that wasn't quite her own. The machine looked like two chairs connected by streams of flowing energy. Elena sat in one chair while Liralay sat in the other, and immediately she could feel the machine beginning to amplify their mental connection. Elena, Liralay said, her voice already sounding strange, like it was coming from inside Elena's own head. Whatever happens, I want you to know that meeting you was the greatest gift of my life. Mine too, Elena replied, though she wasn't sure if she spoke out loud or just thought it. The machine hummed louder, and Elena felt her consciousness beginning to expand. She could feel Liralay's thoughts becoming her thoughts, Liralay's memories mixing with her own. For a moment, she panicked as she felt herself disappearing. But then she realized she wasn't disappearing. She was becoming more than she had ever been before. Through Liralay's mind, she could suddenly sense every Zephyrian in the telepathic network, millions of minds connected like stars in a vast constellation. And there, like a dark shadow moving through the network, she could feel the Red Death. It wasn't alive in any way Elena understood life. It was more like a computer virus, but made of pure thought instead of code. It fed on telepathic energy and grew stronger with each mind it infected. But Elena's non-telepathic mind was like a black hole to the creature. It couldn't read her thoughts or feed on her energy. And now, merged with Liralay, she was creating a blank space in the network that the plague couldn't cross. Working together, their merged consciousness began to chase the Red Death through the telepathic network, cutting off its food supply and forcing it toward the blank space Elena's mind created. It fought back, trying to infect Elena directly, but human minds didn't work the same way as Zephyrian minds. Elena's thoughts were like a different language that the plague couldn't understand, or corrupt slowly, carefully. Elena and Lyrale began to push the Red Death toward the edge of the network, away from populated areas, until finally it had no more minds to feed on and simply faded away. Elena felt the moment it died, like a dark shadow being lifted from her soul. But as the connection stabilized, she realized something had changed permanently. She and Lyrale were still separate people, but they were also something more now, connected in ways that went beyond anything either species had ever experienced. They opened their eyes and looked at each other, and Elena knew that whatever came next, they would face it together. The celebration lasted 3 days, across the Zephyrian Empire. People who had lived in fear of the Red Death were finally free to touch, to heal, to connect with each other again. Elena watched from the palace windows as the crystal city below glowed brighter than ever before, filled with the joy of a people who had survived their greatest nightmare. But even as she watched the festivities, Elena knew that her own battle was just beginning. The reports from the outer colonies are all positive, Lyrale said, entering the room with a smile that made Elena's heart flutter. No new cases of the plague anywhere in the Empire. Elena felt Lyrale's happiness through their permanent connection, but underneath it was a current of worry that matched her own feelings. That's wonderful news, Elena said, turning from the window. But your council doesn't look happy about it. Lyrale's smile faded. They're grateful that the plague is gone, but they're concerned about us. Elena didn't need to ask what she meant. Their mental merger had saved the Zephyrian people, but it had also created something unprecedented. Their bond was now deeper than anything that had ever existed between two beings, let alone to different species. Elena could feel Lyrale's emotions as clearly as her own. She could sense the queen's thoughts from across the palace. Sometimes she would know things about Zephyrian culture or technology without ever being taught. It was amazing and terrifying at the same time. What exactly are they saying? Elena asked. Though through their bond she already knew the answer. They believe the merger has compromised my ability to rule objectively. They think your human thoughts are influencing my decisions too much. Lyrale's skin flickered with frustration. Some of them are calling for me to step down from the throne. Elena sat down heavily on the crystal bench by the window. She had feared this would happen. And, Eartha, she asked, the messages from your government aren't encouraging either, Lyrale admitted. They want you to return immediately for what they call debriefing and evaluation. Elena laughed bitterly. That's a nice way of saying they want to lock me up and study me like a lab experiment. Through their bond, Elena felt Lyrale's flash of protective anger. I will not let them harm you, Lyrale said firmly. And I won't let your people force you to give up your throne because of me, Elena replied. We saved your empire, and they're treating it like we did something wrong. They sat in silence for a while, both feeling the weight of an impossible situation. Two worlds that should have been grateful for their sacrifice instead saw their bond as a threat. There's something else, Lyrale said quietly. The council has given me an ultimatum. Elena's stomach clenched with dread. They want me to use the severance chambers to break our bond permanently. They say if I do that, I can remain queen, and you can return to Earth as a hero who helped save an alien civilization. Elena felt tears stinging her eyes. The severance chambers were a last resort used when telepathic bonds became dangerous or harmful. The process would cut their mental connection forever, leaving them as strangers to each other. And if you refuse, Elena asked, though she already knew, then I must abdicate the throne, and you will be exiled from Zephyrian space permanently. Elena stood up and walked to the far side of the room, trying to process this information. Through their bond, she could feel Lyrale's pain at even considering the options. Maybe they're right, Elena said quietly. Elena, no, listen to me, Elena interrupted. Turning to face Lyrale, you've been a queen for over 100 years. Your people need you. You can't throw away everything you've built for one human. Woman, you are not just one human woman, Lyrale said, standing and crossing the room to Elena. You are the other half of my soul. You are the person who showed me that leadership doesn't have to mean loneliness. Elena felt Liralay's love flowing through their bond, but also her deep sense of duty and responsibility. And you showed me that understanding between different species is possible, Elena replied. But maybe that understanding doesn't require us to be bonded forever. Elena could feel Liralay's heartbreak through their connection, which made her own pain even worse. Is that what you want? Liralay asked. To sever our bond and return to the way things were before? Elena looked into Liralay's glowing eyes and felt the truth deep in her heart. No, she whispered. I don't want to lose this connection with you, but I also don't want you to lose everything you've worked for because of me. Liralay reached out and took Elena's hands. The moment their skin touched, their bond flared brighter, and Elena could feel all of Liralay's thoughts and emotions as if they were her own. Then we find a third option, Liralay said with determination. What do you mean? What if instead of choosing between our bond and our worlds, we show both worlds why our connection is valuable? Elena felt a spark of hope through their shared consciousness. The council meeting is tomorrow, Liralay continued. They expect me to announce my decision about the severance. But what if instead I showed them what our bond really means? Elena was beginning to understand Liralay's plan through their mental connection. You want to share our perspective with them, Elena said. Let them experience what we've experienced, exactly. And not just the council. Representatives from Earth are arriving tonight for negotiations about future contact between our species. What if we could show both sides what real understanding looks like? Elena felt excitement building in both their minds. It's risky, Elena said. If it backfires, we could make things worse. Or we could change everything, Liralay replied. Elena, what we have isn't just about us anymore. We've proven that different species can connect, understand each other, work together. That knowledge is too important to hide. Elena thought about all the wars on Earth, all the conflicts that could be avoided if people could truly understand each other, the way she and Liralay did. What exactly are you proposing? Elena asked. A demonstration. We invite the council and the Earth representatives to experience a limited version of our bond. Let them feel what it's like to truly understand another being's perspective. Elena's scientific mind immediately started considering the implications. The technology exists to create temporary telepathic connections, she said thoughtfully. We used it to deepen our merger. We could modify it to let others experience a brief mental link. It would be voluntary, Liralay added. No one would be forced to participate. But those who choose to would understand what we've discovered. Elena felt the wave of determination flowing through their bond. Let's do it, she said. The next day, the great council chamber was fuller than Elena had ever seen it. The 12 council members sat in their floating thrones, while representatives from Earth sat at a specially constructed table nearby. Elena recognized Dr. Chen among the Earth delegation, and she felt a flutter of happiness at seeing a familiar face, but she also sensed the tension in the room through her bond with Liralay. Both sides were expecting an announcement about severing the connection. Instead, they were about to get something completely unexpected. Honored Council, respected representatives of Earth, Liralay began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. You have asked us to choose between our bond and our responsibilities to our peoples. But we believe this choice is based on a misunderstanding of what our connection truly means. Elena stepped forward, feeling surprisingly calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. Our bond didn't make us weaker or compromise our judgment, Elena continued. It made us better. It allowed us to see problems from new perspectives and find solutions that neither of our species could discover alone. The Red Death was stopped not because we abandoned our responsibilities, Liralay added, but because our connection allowed us to combine human scientific insight with Zephyrian telepathic abilities. Elena gestured toward the modified telepathic amplification device they had brought into the chamber, rather than ask you to take our word for it. We invite you to experience it for yourselves. This device will create a temporary, limited mental connection between volunteers. You'll be able to feel what it's like to truly understand another being's perspective. The chamber erupted in surprised murmurs from both sides. Dr. Chen stood up from the Earth delegation. Elena, are you certain this is safe? As safe as we can make it, Elena replied. The connection will last only a few minutes, and you'll remain in control of your own thoughts and actions. You'll simply gain temporary access to enhanced understanding and empathy. One of the younger council members was the first to volunteer, followed by Dr. Chen. Elena and Lai Raleigh carefully calibrated the device, creating a gentle mental bridge between the Zephyrian and the human. Elena watched as both beings' eyes widened with wonder. Through her bond with Lai Raleigh, she could sense what they were experiencing, the sudden understanding of how different the other species thought, the realization that their fears and hopes were fundamentally similar despite their physical differences. When the connection ended, both volunteers sat in stunned silence for a moment. I felt his curiosity, the young council member said quietly, looking at Dr. Chen. His genuine desire to understand and learn. There was no deception or hidden agenda, and I felt her wisdom. Dr. Chen replied, his voice filled with awe. The weight of responsibility she carries for her people, but also her